Hey everyone, this tutorial is going to cover the syncing process, so synchronizing your audio and video if you were doing a dual system shoot where the sound was recorded to one place and the picture was recorded somewhere else. This is how you marry them together before you actually do your creative editing. And I would note you want to do your syncing before you start editing, because if you start editing before you've done the syncing, it becomes much harder to do it later. Before I get into the syncing process itself, real quickly I want to show you one thing about the media workflow here. So this is 4K footage shot on the FS7, and when I brought it into Premiere, I had it create proxies. This is the workflow that is also posted for you on Canvas and suggested, so that I don't have to work with the full 4K high data rate resolution that my computer may or may not be able to handle. I'm working on a laptop, so I can tell you from experience it will not work very well running with that. So I created these proxies, and there is a common misconception or worry that you're creating these low resolution versions and they're just going to be hard to work with and look terrible. And I wanted to point out that that's not true. They look great. They're not what you're going to use for your final mastering and coloring. You're going to go back and reconnect it automatically to the original full res media files. But this footage looks plenty good enough for you to be doing your editing. In fact, what we're looking at right now is a proxy. And to show you the original footage, it looks like this. You'll notice there's a slight aspect ratio difference. The proxy setup I have here is for UHD, and this footage was actually shot in full 4K 4096 by 2160 instead of 3840 by 2160, so it results in this slight difference in how they're pictured. If I was doing this on a professional project, I would make a new proxy preset that actually correctly does it for the full 4K, but I was just working with what I had for this quick demo. So you can see this looks perfectly fine. I can see everything I need to see to do my creative edit, figure out what shots to use, and tell what's in focus and all these sorts of things. So don't worry about, oh, I'm downgrading my footage, it's going to look so terrible that I'm going to have a hard time editing or anything. This looks wonderful. And really, we have to zoom way in. So I'm going to blow this up to 400% to kind of be able to see even where we're getting some downgrades. And kind of looking at this like detailed area here, here's the original footage, and kind of ignore the sort of aspect ratio change, but just look at the kind of, you can make out all these fine twigs and every little line in the background. And when I go to the proxy, some of that gets lost a little bit. I lose some of this here. You can see there's some artifacting here where you can kind of see the edges, and this gets a little muddy. The grass, here I can kind of pick up almost every blade individually, and here it kind of becomes a little bit of just kind of a massive green. But this is blown up to 400% view. If I go to the sort of full frame here, you can't see any visible difference. This is not something to worry about. I don't know why students sometimes freak out about this. It's perfectly fine to work with proxies, low res versions. This is how like all editing is done. It's fine. Okay, so let's talk about the syncing process. First thing I'm going to do is I need to find a clip. So let's pull up this one here. And the way syncing works is very straightforward conceptually. It's just then making sure you do it the right way in terms of the actual technical process in the software. But on set, you have this slate, and there's always the moment where they're going to take the slate and bring that clapper down. And what we're going to do is look for the moment visually where that clapper, this part that's sticking up here, hits the rest of the slate, and that's also going to make a sound, that loud, sharp clap sound that it makes when that hits. So on the image track, we're going to look for that moment when it hits and mark that, and on the audio track, we're going to look for the sound of that hitting and mark that moment, and then we're just going to tell our software, hey, put this moment in the audio matching this moment at the video, and then lock everything synced up forward from that. And that's all that we're really doing, is we're saying, match these things up at this point, and then they should just stay synced together for the rest of the time. This workflow is on the FS7 media editing procedures handout on Canvas, so you can follow along there when you're doing this yourself. But real quick demo, we're going to look for this moment, and this can be a little bit of a subjective thing. So if I blow this up here a little bit, I can't quite tell if it's just about to hit in this frame and then finally hits in this frame, or if it hits during this frame. So it's clearly still up here. Maybe it's this frame, maybe it's this frame. I'm going to take my best guess, which I think is this one, because it looks like they come together. And I'm going to mark an endpoint. So I'll hit the I button, or you can mark your endpoint with the on-screen button here, which just tells you go ahead and hit I. That'll do the same thing. So I'm saying, okay, that's the point where that happens there. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my audio. So I need to find the audio for take 1, because this is scene 1, take 1. So I'll find my audio for scene 1, take 1. Let's open that up. That looks like not the one I want. I have 2, audio 1, take 1. Let's try this one. Okay, and you can see, just looking at the waveform, I can tell you this is going to be where that slate hits. This is why working with a slate and a clapper makes this so nice in post, because it's very obvious usually where that slate hits. You can work with other things. If you go on set and you forgot to bring a slate, you can have somebody clap in front of the camera, and that can work too as a sync point. Basically anything you can find where there's something that happens in the image that you know happens at the same time as something in the sound, and you can just match up those 2 points, that will work. It's just a lot easier when I can look at this waveform and say, boom, I know what a sync point looks like. Let's actually double check and make sure that's right. Looks like there's a lot of talking once audio got rolling before we actually recorded. So let's rewind it a little bit and kind of hear them read the slate and make sure this is in fact take 1 of scene 1. So read the slate.
Roll 1, scene 1, take 1.
You pick that up. Okay. Yep, so that's it. So we're going to go ahead and grab the slate here, and this is what it's going to be. Okay, so that's that sound. It's got this very characteristic look to it when you look at the waveform. It's this very sharp hit, and then you can see the envelope sort of tails off a little bit after. So we're going to move to that point, and we're going to mark an in point here. So I've now marked the in on the sound and the in on the image. And let's actually mark this video clip. This was scene 1, take 1. You can use your own way of labeling these or however you were naming them on set, but I'm just going to use this, scene 1, take 1. So I've got the in point marked on those. Then I'm just going to select these 2 files, so the video file and the audio file, and I'm going to right click on them and select merge clips. So I'm telling it I want these to be mushed together into one clip. And it'll ask me what the name for it is. The default is it just takes the name of the video clip and then puts merged at the end of it. That's fine. If you wanted to name it something else, you could. I personally like just calling it sync. And then what do I want to do? I want to use the in points, because that's what I set. I marked an in point on both of them. If I had done a tail slate and marked the out points on both, I could do that. I'll also note there's a time code option. One really efficient way in post-production to do your syncing is if you had jam sync time code on set and your camera and audio were running exactly the same time code. I don't even need to look at the clips or mark anything. I can just tell it, hey, look at all these clips, and any place where the time codes match, mash those together and make a new clip with it, and that'll work. That's a lot more work on set to actually keep your camera and audio's time code synced together correctly. So we don't do that here, but that is a viable option. It saves you time in post, but it's a lot more work on the front end. So we're kind of doing the opposite. We're doing it the easy way on the front end, and then we just have to do a little more work in post matching up these endpoints. So I'll do that. It does give me the option of, do I want to keep the audio that was in the clip? So in this case, I'm looking at this on the camera, it actually did record some audio. There were some tracks active recording on the camera. I can keep those if I might want them as a reference to make sure everything looks good. I'm going to say I'm going to trust my sound team that they got the sound right, so let's remove the audio there and hit OK. And it creates this new clip. So here it is, scene 1, take 1, sync. And if I load that up, you can see it's going to start right at that sync moment. That looked okay. Let's go to a moment where maybe there's some sound. Let's look for putting the bag on the bench here and make sure that looks like it syncs up correctly. Yep, I think that looks good. So we got that sunk. Let's do one more. So here's scene 1, take 2. Again, this looks like this is going to be my audio clip. I can rewind and double check that this is in fact labeled correctly as scene 1, take 2.
Roll 1, scene 1, take 2.
Yep, it is. Okay, so let's grab the right shot there. Again, this is subjective. You can see this kind of happens right, the slate is right at the end of this frame or right at the start of this frame, so you figure out which one you want. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one, mark my endpoint, and then let's get scene 1, take 2. Okay, so let's find that sync point. Boom, that's right where it hits. Mark my endpoint. Let's double check this is scene 1, take 2. It is, and it's a little tough to read, but it is. Okay, and then I'm just going to select both of these again. Right click and merge clips by endpoints. Great. And then the other thing I would suggest, just for your organization, you got all this stuff here. Hopefully you are organizing things better than I am, just throwing everything into one bin here. I'm going to make a bin that says synced clips. And I'm just going to move these synced clips in there. And I know those are the ones I'm actually going to edit with. And then maybe I can say raw unsynced audio, or however you want to organize things is fine if this was a larger project. I would probably separate the audio and video into separate bins, but throw all this here. Okay, and then I'm just going to ignore this folder because I just want to edit with the synced stuff, and after I have everything synced, I can put it all in here. The other suggestion I would make, if you have a lot of clips, I was doing this kind of one at a time to show you how it works. What I usually do is go through and mark all of my endpoints for everything first, and then just go through quickly and merge, 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 just because I find that faster in terms of my workflow. So you don't have to do every clip individually, merge it, and then move it. You can kind of do them all at once, or mark all your audio and then go find the video clips, or however you want to do it. As long as you just end up making sure that you're just highlighting one video clip and one audio clip that match at a time and doing merge. You can't select all of these and say, well, I marked endpoints on all of these. Let's go ahead and just merge them. So it's going to try to merge all of those into one giant clip that'll have 2 video tracks and a bunch of audio tracks to it. And that's not what we want. We want each clip available individually to edit with. So that's the process of syncing. Hope that made sense. Good luck with your own.